How many of you have ever seen any of the Rocky movies? Any of them? Okay. Rocky 1 starts with this unknown boxer. You see him training. You see him, he has no money. He's got nothing to his name. I mean, he's just barely making ends meet, but he loves boxing. You contrast that with the heavyweight champion of the world. His name was Apollo Creed. And Apollo is this brash, showboaty boxer who is trying to promote his next fight. And so what happens is that his manager says, what if you gave a nobody a shot at the heavyweight title? Somebody that no one had ever heard of, somebody that, and it's just like David and Goliath. We just promote it like that. And so, as you can guess, Rocky Balboa gets the chance to be that nobody that fights Apollo. And he goes 15 rounds. He ends up losing. Rocky ends up losing by a judge's decision, but no one could believe he went toe-to-toe with the heavyweight champion of the world for 15 rounds. Rocky 2, rematch. This time they go 15 rounds again, but this time they both hit each other, and they both knock each other down, and the ref is counting to 10, and Rocky gets up at 9. Apollo doesn't. Rocky becomes the heavyweight champion of the world. Rocky 3. Rocky now is rich. He's beating up on everybody until the number 1 contender in the world, Mr. T, Clubber Lang, goes and fights him. And right before Rocky fights, his manager gets hurt, ends up dying, and Rocky loses to Clubber Lang in the second round. Then he goes back to the basics, and he learns how to fight from the streets, and he gets quick. Apollo trains him, and he comes back, and he defeats Clubber Lang and gets the title back. Then in Rocky 4, this big Russian, all right? This big Russian. His name was no. What's the Russian's name? No, not Vladimir Putin. My gosh, what is the?
I thought Apollo Creed was the name of a
what is the name? Apollo. Yes, it is. You don't know the Russian's name in Rocky. Ivan Drago. Ivan Drago has a exhibition match that Apollo Creed, and he kills Apollo Creed in the ring. He's cheating. He's using steroids. Then, to avenge Apollo, Rocky beats him. 15th round once again, knocks him down. Then Rocky 5, Rocky loses everything because his brother-in-law basically does a shady deal with his money, and Rocky loses all of his money. So Rocky fights outside. That's just stupid. Don't worry about it.
Run up the stairs.
That was Rocky. Running up the stairs was Rocky 1, and does it again in Rocky 2.
After that, who cares?
Yeah. Then we get to Rocky Balboa. That's the name of this one. Rocky 5, then Rocky Balboa. Rocky is a over-the-hill former champion. He's got no business fighting. This one was made in 2006. He's got no business fighting. His career is over. His best years are behind him. He owns a small restaurant, lives a quiet life. But throughout the movie, there is this sadness and heaviness to him. His wife has died, so she's no longer there, and she's the one that always inspired him right at the moment when he thought he was going to give up. She inspired him. She's not there anymore. But Rocky has this burning desire to fight one more time. His son tells him, you can't do it. You're going to get hurt. You're too old. This is too dangerous. And honestly, his son is right about that. He's got no business fighting. Yet Rocky knows that stepping into this ring one more time is what he has been made to do. But it's going to cost him something. He knows that it's going to bring pain. He knows that he's going to have to work out like never before just to get in remote shape to be able to fight here. It's going to bring suffering. He knows that this is not the easy way. The easy way is just to keep working in his restaurant and not know about it. Rocky says something powerful to his son. He says, I have to do this. Basically, this is who I am, and I'm supposed to do this. Just to let you know, he goes the distance once again, just like the first one. He goes the distance. He loses once again to the, just like the first one, it's kind of poetic. It comes all the way around. He loses by judge's decision, but as he doesn't even wait for the judge's decision, he just walks out of the ring as everybody chants, Rocky, Rocky. And he just walks out of the arena with his hands up, and that is the end of Rocky until he trains Apollo's son in the movie Creed with Michael B. Jordan. All comes back around. All comes back around. Michael B. Jordan. Now, obviously, there are many differences between Rocky Balboa and Jesus. But this scene where his son is telling him, Dad, you're going to get hurt. This is the hard way. Don't do this. This is going to be so painful. This is going to be ugly. You're going to get beat up. That scene does capture something deeply human. All of us have moments where we want to run from the hard thing. All of us have moments where our soul feels very heavy. Moments that we wish that we could escape the pain, escape the pressure, the suffering, the fear, the rejection, the sacrifice. And sometimes Christians think that faith is pretending to not feel those things. That real Christians shouldn't be afraid. Real Christians should never be overwhelmed. They should never be emotionally troubled. But as we're going to see tonight, it's not Jesus' approach. Jesus says something very shocking. He says, now is my soul troubled. The perfect Son of God, the sinless Savior of the world, the one who is perfect and has perfect obedience is troubled. And yet we're going to see that he does not let his emotions control him. He brings his troubled soul to the Father in prayer, and through prayer, he surrenders himself to the purpose and the glory of God. Now, I need to give you some background real quick before we read this text. Jesus has been doing ministry, okay? Mainly ministry among the Jewish people. And some Greeks, who are not Jews, come to Jesus' disciples and say, we want to meet with Jesus. Okay? We are not told what they want to talk about, but we're assuming they want to talk about, based upon Jesus' response, they want to talk about, Jesus, are you a Savior for us too? Because Jesus' response, he doesn't even agree to meet with them, but this is what he says. He says, if I be lifted up, I will draw all people to myself. Now again, very interesting. The Jews believed the Messiah was for who? Just for the Jews. Just for us. And yet here are some Greeks coming to talk to Jesus, and Jesus uses this as an opportunity to say, listen, I'm not just a Messiah for the Jews. If I be lifted up on the cross, I will draw all people to myself. Of course, we know from Revelation, people from every tribe, nation, and language. This is what leads us to John 12, because Jesus is thinking about his sacrifice on the cross. He's thinking about his suffering. He's thinking about that day that's coming where he will be lifted up. And here's what he says in verse 27 and 28. Now is my soul troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? But for this purpose I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. saying, I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again. The first thing I want you to see is this idea of Jesus' soul being heavy. When your soul is heavy. Jesus begins this prayer with very real honesty. And again, we're going to see some of the same things we've seen before. This should just let us know how we should pray. Jesus comes with honesty. He comes with emotion. He doesn't pretend that he's okay. And he says to the Father, my soul is troubled. That word troubled is very strong language. It means disturbed, agitated, shaken, or deeply distressed. Jesus is not casually uncomfortable here. He is absolutely overwhelmed by the reality of what's coming. He knows the cross is drawing near. He knows that he is going to be betrayed. He knows that he is going to be denied. He knows that suffering is coming. He knows that he is going to have to bear the wrath of God for sin. And Jesus does not suppress that anguish. He brings it to the Father. So I have a question for you, not rhetorical, I would like you to answer. What does it tell us about Jesus that he is willing to be this open instead of hiding it? What do you think? What does this tell us about Jesus that he's willing to be open with how he feels, open with his trouble, his emotional state, that he is open and vulnerable bringing that to the Father? Yes, Eliab? Yes, Eliab? Speak up. Okay, he is honest. He's holy. And what? Confident and confident. Confident in what? Because it's one of the things I wrote down as I answered this question. I wrote down the word confident. But confident or secure in what? In God, but specifically his relationship with the Father. He knows that as he brings this real, I'm going to get to you in a minute, as he brings this real stuff to the Father's not going to go, what are you doing? How dare you be down? How dare you be troubled? He is secure in this relationship he has with the Father that he can be real with the Father. And the Father's not going to turn him away. Yes, Josias. Okay. It speaks to the trust that we have in God to be able to share that with him. So that links to what we're talking about. Yeah. So to be vulnerable with anybody, there is a sense of trust. You are not vulnerable with somebody you don't trust, right? You would hide it. You can only be vulnerable with people that you trust. And so here, Jesus is revealing the kind of trust he has in the Father, the security he has in the Father, the confidence he has in the Father to bring all this to him. Anybody else? Here's another thing that I think. It reveals that having these kinds of emotions is not a sin. Right? Jesus was tempted in every way like us, but without sin. And so for Jesus to feel this troubled and this overwhelmed is not sin. Bringing your soul before the Lord is not it doesn't mean you're spiritually weak. Right? It doesn't mean you're a spiritual baby. Well, only those mature Christians don't struggle with their emotional state and aren't troubled. Here we have Jesus struggling emotionally, and it is not sin. You know what it is? It's actually worship. To take your troubled soul to the Father is worship. Psalm 42:5. You have this in your notes. David says this to his own soul. Why are you cast down, my soul? Now he's writing this as a prayer, though. But he's saying to God, my soul is cast down. David was willing to speak honestly before God. So neither Jesus nor David here is bringing fake strength. He brings his pain into the presence of God. Now, social media and the world that you live in, teenagers, look at me. The world that you live in, let me see your eyeballs. The world that you live in is going to present two options to you. Okay? Our culture, our modern world that we live in is either going to tell you, hide your struggles completely. One of the things that people have always bashed about Instagram is that Instagram is a snapshot. You're just taking a picture of yourself faking that your life is great. Faking that you've got everything together. Faking as if everything is perfectly fine. So either hide it, or your emotions, your how you feel becomes the thing that rules you. And so you go to the internet to spew out all of these emotional things that basically rule your life. And so this modern world is basically telling us those are the two options. You either hide it or you vomit it all out. And usually out on other people. But Jesus doesn't do either one. He's honest about his emotions without surrendering to his emotions. And this is a massive difference. Our culture can say at times, follow your feelings. Your emotions make reality. Do whatever feels good. Escape any discomfort. But Jesus shows us something better. You can feel deep anguish. You can feel deep emotions and still follow God faithfully. And teenagers, today many of you and your fellow teenagers are carrying very heavy souls. Pressure, anxiety, fear, loneliness, family struggles, insecurity, depression, pressure to fit in, pressure to succeed, pressure to be liked. And sometimes, because your soul can feel heavy, it's tempting to think, well, no one understands. No one sees me. Nobody gets it. But Jesus does. He's not distant from human suffering. He entered into our suffering. And so instead of running from God when we are troubled, Jesus runs to the Father and gives us a great example of what we're supposed to do. And really, that's what prayer is supposed to be. Prayer is not pretending you're okay. Prayer is bringing your trouble, bringing your not okay self before God. Jesus is not okay right now. He is not okay. And he doesn't fake it. He prays before people, out loud, to God. This quote that you have in front of you, it's by Neil Sandlin. Here's the quote. Scratch it out. Prayer is the place where the burdened heart speaks honestly to God as it learns to rest in God. So prayer is the place where the burdened heart, the troubled heart, speaks honestly to God at the same time you're learning to rest in Him. Here's why. When you are vulnerable with somebody and that person doesn't run, you can rest in that person. When you find somebody that you can be real with and that person stays there and loves you, you can learn to rest in that relationship. And the reason why people have a hard time taking their burdens to God is because a lot of times they think that God is going to act like how other people have acted toward them in the past and reject them and run from them and not love them. But Jesus is demonstrating here, when we come with our burdened heart and soul to the Father stays. The Father doesn't run. The Father stays. So here's what I want you to think about this first point. I wrote this down for you. Called to more than comfort, that's the title of the message. Called to more than comfort means we do not have to fake strength. It means we bring our weakness, sorrow, and troubled souls to the Father just like Jesus did. You see that written down there for you? Number 2, Jesus asked a question here. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. There's 2 approaches to this statement, okay? One approach, one interpretation is that Jesus is asking the Father, save me from this hour. I don't think Jesus is there yet. We know that's coming, don't we? When does Jesus pray that prayer? When does Jesus pray the prayer, Lord, take this from me? Yeah, the Garden of Gethsemane. He's going to get there. So what this means is that his troubled soul is not yet troubled as it will be. He's troubled, but not yet as troubled as he's going to get, because eventually he's going to get so weak that he says to the Father, let this cup pass from me. I don't know if I can do this. Here, though, I think this is a rhetorical question. I think it's basically Jesus saying this. My soul is troubled, but what? Am I supposed to ask God just to take this away? Am I supposed to just avoid the cross? Am I supposed to escape the very reason why I've come? So I think this is a rhetorical question. I think he's saying, my soul is troubled, but what am I gonna say? Father, forget it. This whole plan, let's scratch it. Let's not do it. Because immediately he says, no, it was for this very reason I came to this hour. So I'm not going to ask for this hour to be taken away from me, because this is the reason I'm here. And so this changes the tone of the passage. Jesus is not wavering from his mission, even though his emotions are very, very powerful. He is not reconsidering the cross. He's not shrinking back from his obedience. He's acknowledging the horror that is coming, while at the same time rejecting the idea that he's going to escape it. So let me ask you this question, not rhetorical. Why is it important that Jesus refuses to ask to be removed from the very purpose he came to fulfill? Why is it important that Jesus refuses? What can we learn from Jesus refusing to be asked to be removed from this situation? Yes. We'll start with Eliab and we'll move again. Okay. Yes, if his mission is to go to the cross and he abandons that mission, then he's not being obedient to the Father. So he's resisting the abandonment altogether. Yosius? Speak up. Over the AC. That is what he prays in the garden. And he's going to say something very similar here in a minute. So I think you're both correct. Anybody else got any ideas? Why is it important that Jesus refuses to ask to be removed from the situation? Andy?
I think it also shows humility in a way, because it's like, and on a different level, because he's Jesus. But like when we, in our flesh, we don't want to do things we don't want to do. But when we're like, this is what God wants you to do, or it's his plan, we have to humble ourselves to that.
Yeah.
Rather than just thinking, oh, I don't want to do this, so I'm not doing it. So I think it's him showing even like more humility, like,
yeah,
why would I even ask this? I'm obeying.
Yeah.
What I'm supposed to do.
Absolutely. And I think too, it tells us that when our emotions are very strong, those emotions don't get to decide what we do. Right? Emotions don't tell us if something's true or not true. Okay? Emotions are they're just signals to us. Signals that something's going on with us. But we don't make our decisions based on how we feel. Because as Andy's saying, we can't just say, okay, well, I'm troubled, so therefore the thing I'm troubled about, I can just not persevere. I can just not obey. I can just not trust, because after all, I'm emotional about this. Jesus knows what's coming, and he understands something that I think sometimes us in America, it's very easy for us to forget. Comfort is not the highest purpose in our lives. Okay? Listen carefully. Comfort is not the highest priority in your life. Jesus did not save you to make you comfortable. Okay? Jesus is showing us right here. The comfortable thing would be to say, yeah, let's forget this. That would be the comfortable thing. Again, one of the biggest lies that our culture teaches all of us, but teaches you teenagers, is take the easy route. Whatever's easiest, do that. Avoid discomfort. Protect yourself at all costs. If something is hard, quit. Leave. If obedience costs you too much, then don't pay that price. But Jesus completely destroys that mindset. Completely destroys it. And he says, listen, I am troubled because I know what's coming. This is about to be the hardest thing any human being is ever going to have to do. And Jesus says, comfort, avoiding pain, avoiding suffering, avoiding hardship, avoiding trouble is not why I'm here. I'm here for something greater. Obedience to God matters more than your personal comfort. Yes, David.
When I see this passage, it just gives me a lot of hope, because when I look at the fact that Jesus had to do something that was so hard and painful in life, and the reality is we all face something that's painful and hard in life. I know because he decided to not take the easy route. I don't have to take the easy route.
Yeah.
I have the capability now to take the hard route.
Yeah.
He did it for me when he was 12 1.
Yeah.
What it said before. He
Endured the cross.
so that we can follow along with him.
Yeah.
It's given me a lot of hope.
Yeah. Yeah, the theme of sacrifice, the theme of laying yourself down in hardship and suffering for the Christian, that theme, the end of that theme is always joy. Jesus says in Luke 9:23, if anyone come after me, let him take up his cross daily and follow me. But the death that we die to ourselves, the end of that is infinite joy. He's not saying deny yourself to remove joy, to remove pleasure, to remove delight. No, he's saying lay yourself down for ultimate delight, for ultimate pleasure, for ultimate joy. The world is willing to sacrifice themselves for stuff that doesn't bring that. And so this idea, it's called, the language that people use, it's called cruciform. The cruciform life that we live is laying the form, the pattern of crucifying ourselves. And Jesus demonstrates this for us, and that does give us courage. The same Spirit that empowered Jesus in this moment is the same Spirit that lives in us. J.C. Ryle says, look at this quote, "The Son of God did not come into the world to make men comfortable, but to make men holy." And guess what happens? The more holy you get, guess what happens? More joy, more pleasure, more delight. So, second point, called to more than comfort means following Jesus even when obedience leads through difficulty instead of around it. Sometimes Jesus is going to take you right through difficulty. Yes.
How do you get to a place in life when your flesh and every natural thing that you still deal with is, protect, comfort? How do you get to a place where you can say no to that and you can die to that and see obedience and Jesus as something that you want and desire more than this comfort that every part of your body is telling you to go after?
I think there's two things. I think number one, you got to do what Jesus did. Take all of that discomfort that you're feeling, all of that trouble, all that hardship, all that difficulty, take it all to Jesus. Quit bottling it up and trying to tough it out and be spiritual, be so, spiritually minded that you're not going to take this to God. Quit trying to tough it out. Take it all to God. Go worship God by pouring your heart out. And then here's what's beautiful about how God raises us up. And this happens in a variety of different ways. God does not ask children to make the same kind of sacrifice that he asks adults to make. Part of your process of sanctification, teenagers, is learning how to say yes to smaller things in your life that brings discomfort. Okay? So what happens is that God, you need to begin practicing now being willing to be put in some uncomfortable situations that don't risk your life. Because at some point, you may have to, as an adult, put yourself in a situation for Jesus that may cost you a lot more than it cost you as a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old. You see what I'm saying? And so what God does is he begins to train that in you and develop that in you as we say yes to the small things. And then what we're doing is we're training ourselves to get used to discomfort, to get used to the situations where this is uncomfortable for me, but instead of running from it, I'm going to lean into it because I know this is good for me. And so we take it all to God, and then we look for those small things that I can go against my natural inclination, my natural fear, my fleshly temptation to not step up, to not, and it may just be little tiny things. But you start doing those little, C.S. Lewis talks about this, you start practicing those little things, then guess what happens? I mean, it's with anything. When you first learn how to walk, how do you get to the place where you run? Well, you don't start running. You learn to take a step, and then 2 steps, and then 3 steps. And then you start walking better and better and better, and then you learn to run. And then you learn to sprint. It's like that with anything in our lives. Our spiritual life is spiritual development. It's not just going to get dumped on you all at once. So you got to start looking for opportunities to get uncomfortable at times. It may just be sacrificing your flesh in your own house for a sibling, for a parent. Doing something that would make you uncomfortable to bless somebody in your home. You could start right there. Doing things that your mom and dad are going to have to do. Go do it for them. Maybe there's a chore your sibling has, and then that week you just do their chore as well as your chore. And you begin developing this, getting away from this idea that I have to be comfortable all the time. You don't. And I'm going to tell you what, you might as well start practicing it because you're going to get uncomfortable whether you want it or not. So you better get used to being uncomfortable, because let's say you don't have any training, you're going to be dropped in a situation where you are not comfortable, whether you want it or not. So let's start developing that and training that and praying toward that. Because ultimately, you're not here for your comfort. You're here for the glory of God. And that's what Jesus says at the very end. When God's glory matters most, what does he say? Father, glorify your name. What, am I going to ask to be taken away from this situation? No. This is the very hour I came. Father, glorify your name. What is implied here? Glorify your name through me. Through my willingness to go through the hardship, glorify your name. He didn't pray, Father, protect my comfort. Father, remove the pain. Father, make this easier. His greatest desire is to glorify the Father. And even when this trouble elevates itself even more in the Garden of Gethsemane, when it is the peak of trial, and he's sweating drops of blood, he's in so much stress and anxiety that the capillaries in his body are breaking open and he's bleeding into his sweat glands. What does he say? Not my will, your will be done. Glorify your name. Glorify your name. The life of Jesus was ultimately not about comfort. It was about glory. At the cross, the holiness of God is going to get glorified, the justice of God glorified, mercy of God glorified, love of God glorified, grace of God glorified. The cross is what it looks like to defeat the world. John 17, the high priestly prayer, Jesus says, I glorified you, Father, here on earth, having accomplished the work that you gave me to do. Jesus understood the purpose of his life. And honestly, as we've already seen, this changes the way we should pray. It is very natural for us to pray, God, make this easier. God, remove this hard thing. God, make me comfortable. And I'm not saying it's wrong to ask God for help. My goodness, it's not wrong to ask God for help. But our highest goal has got to be bigger than comfort. Does this not connect right back to the Lord's Prayer? Pray like this. Our Father who is in heaven, what? Hallowed be your name. And what did we say hallowed meant? Exalted, revered, treasured, glorified. Jesus is now living out the exact way he taught his disciples to pray. And what happens next is incredible. Jesus hears an audible voice from the Father say, I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again. Now, what's weird is other people heard rumbling, and some people are like, well, this was thunder. But Jesus heard this voice. He heard the Father say, respond to Jesus' surrender and say, I'm going to glorify it. This is not going to be wasted. Look at me, teenagers. Look at me. Your sacrifice for the kingdom of God will never be wasted. I don't care how little you think it is. It's not going to be wasted. God's going to use it. Well, that chore that I did for my sibling, it's not that. That's going to, not only is that going to set, it's going to do a bunch of things. It's going to set an example to your sibling. It's going to be developing sacrifice in your own life. It's going to bless your family. It's going to bless your parents. God's not going to waste that. He never wastes any sacrifice we make for him. Anytime you're uncomfortable for the kingdom of God, God is going to use that to glorify himself. We have been called to more than comfort. We have been called to live for the glory of God. Jim Elliot, remember I told you about Jim Elliot? The guy that was killed, speared to death by the Auca Indians, missionary. He wrote this in his journal when he surrendered to going to the Auca Indians, knowing that he was risking his life to reach this unreached group. He says this: "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose." Let me break that down for you. You cannot keep your comfort. Can't. You're going to be put in uncomfortable situations whether you want to or not. You're going to be put in suffering whether you want to or not. You are not a fool to give up your comfort, which you can't keep anyway, to gain that which you cannot lose, which is Christ, his kingdom, and every bit of joy and delight and pleasure that comes with it. You aren't a fool for giving up your very life, if that's what God calls you to gain the thing that you can't lose. So, called to more than comfort means learning to value the glory of God above the temporary comfort of this world. So, in this prayer, Jesus is showing us that prayer is not just about escaping hard things. Prayer is about pouring out your troubled soul, but not letting that control you, and seeking the glory of God even when it is costly.